welcome to another Saddle Up with Sienna, and today we're going to be going over another jumping lesson with Chip. As I've talked about before, we are getting ready for our first combined test, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can watch our journey as we work towards that big day of our first ever combined test together. So those last few clips, we are warming up. Right now we are warming up in a 20-meter circle and just trying to get him to bend a bit and listen a bit more because he just likes to run. Like right now he's a moderate tempo, but he's still not really using himself. So now we're about to move on to our first ever clip jumping, and he does a very nice first trot in jump. So now we are trotting into our next fence again. He's kind of doing like a kind of nervous looking at the fence kind of trot. Then he just does a little hop over it and we land on the incorrect lead. So now we're trotting into this fence again, and during this fence, he lands on the incorrect lead again, and every time he does this, I just feel like I'm going to fly off of him because we feel very imbalanced. Now we're trotting into it again, and again with the wrong lead. On the straightaway, we really got to work on that. Now he's got a lot more forward trot, and again, we just can't pick it up right. Right now I'm just kind of focusing on getting over the fences correctly rather than picking up the correct lead, but I should probably start worrying about that. Again, we are trotting in. These are just our warm-up fences to get ready. And this time we end up on the correct lead. Yay, Chip, you're such a good boy. So now we're going to trot into this little vertical. And he lands on the correct lead, which is awesome. Which was pretty, he usually picks it up correctly on the diagonal, but sometimes it's a bit harder. Now he gets a little bit antsy and wants to go canter for the next fence. He really loves jumping and he just wants to do it as fast as he possibly can. And so now I head him towards this, in my opinion, beautiful pillar fence. And he kind of looks at it a little, and then he lands on the incorrect lead. And then I point him towards this next fence, and he's again very lucky and just wants to get there as quickly as possible. But he does a nice hop over that one as well, and lands on the correct lead. So now we trot into it, and we land on the correct canter lead. And boy, he was just so good with that fence that he goes back to trot very willingly. We were trying to get him back to trot every fence, so not cantering into any, being very strict about keeping the trot step within the trot so that he does not go to canter and gets antsy. And then he does that fence again very beautifully, and then I take a really tight turn because, well, we were practicing show jumping, but my coach wanted me to go around them because that is a really tight turn, and we were really working on our lines more than our turns, so yeah. Then he does this beautiful fence, but again we land on the incorrect lead. So we need to work on that. I really thought he'd pick that one up a little bit easier, and then he gets a bit antsy and tries to go back to canter. And I kept on getting left behind over this fence, but that time I did it, but it was a really funny little hop over it. So now we are going to canter into the fences for the very first time of the day. And he takes this one very nicely for the first canter fence of the day. He lands on the correct lead. He doesn't try to switch it. Now our goal was to get at least 3 trot strides before sending him back to canter. And we got more than that. He was very, very good about that. I kept him in there as long as I possibly could before sending him back to canter. And this time, however, we do not get the correct lead. He stays on the lead that we were on before. He's just like, nope, I'm not changing it. And so then I try to bring him back to trot, but he's just not feeling it. So then I send him back to canter. He was very willing with that transition. He always is usually to go to canter, unless he's unsure. And so I don't know, I find that lead pretty funny because I think he got a little bit too close to the fence and he's just like, whoop. So, yeah. So now I kind of struggle to get the canter back before this fence, and I get way left behind. That fence, I got left behind a lot. And so now we are going to canter into it for the second time. And hopefully this time we can make our transitions a bit more willing, a bit more clear. And so I really liked that fence a lot. I thought that was really nice on his part. So now we're just going to go around, get that trot in. We kept him in trot for a while, sent him back to canter. Very good boy, picks it up. And hopefully, let's see. Nope, didn't get the correct lead, but I mean, we're still training, so not everything's going to be perfect, and that's just one of the things that you can see that we really need to work on. And I'm trying to bring him back to trot, but this time he's just not as obedient as I would like him to be. So I put him on a circle before sending him back to canter, which sometimes I have to make a choice. Do I send him over the fence anyways, or do I circle? In this case, I had to circle instead of going over the fence because he was just unbalanced and running. And so now we're going over this fence, still land on the incorrect lead, but I think it was a beautiful fence other than the landing. And now I struggle to send him back to trot because it's hard to set him up on a straightaway. But then he ends up switching his leads over his fence, and beautiful, but I get left behind. So now we are doing it again, quite forward to that cross rail. This time not very obedient transition. I really had to fight him and hold him up to try and get him to go back to trot, but I end up keeping him there, sending him back to canter, and we just wanted to work these two fences over again because they were always the ones we struggled with. Again, though, not on the correct lead, and we were really working on getting the correct lead over that fence. It all started good when we were trotting, but once we got the canter, he just didn't want to switch his lead over it. And so then we tried again, and again, very forward canter going into the fence. You know, he just tries his hardest. It's so adorable. He does not change his lead over that cross rail, which is beautiful. I think it's funny that he gets the cross rail better in a canter than he does in trot, but he can't get that vertical as well as he did in trot. So I think that's pretty interesting. So then I bring him back to canter, and again, we're just working these two fences, but we don't end up getting the correct lead, but it was still a beautiful jump, so we decided to end on that note and kind of like a positive. He was a really good boy today, and I was super proud of him. This is the end of the video, guys. As I said earlier, we are getting ready for our first combined test, which is a huge milestone, and ever since I started riding, I've always wanted to start eventing, so this is kind of like another step up towards our first mini trial, and I am super excited for this. It is going to be one of the biggest days in my riding journey, and I'm just so glad that I get to do it on Chip because he's just such a good pony. We are both learning, and I love him so much. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe for crazy horse content for horse crazy kids.